Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, starring Jeremy Allen White, Jeremy Strong, Paul Walter Hauser, Stephen Graham, Odessa Young, David Krumholtz, Gabby Hoffman, Harrison Sloan Gilbertson, Grace Gummer, and Mark Marone, directed by Scott Cooper. Welcome back, Scott Cooper. After I reviewed Antlers and The Pale Blue Eye, and now I'm back with this Bruce Springsteen biopic that I talked about briefly when I reviewed the Iron Claw, because Jeremy Allen White's having quite a career from this and The Bear, and which is a show I never watched, by the way, and all that. So I don't know much about Bruce Springsteen and his music, but I do know "Born in the USA," which was appeared in that movie Air. But let's see if I'm a fan of his music after this movie. Let's get into it. We start in 1957 in Freehold, New Jersey, as a young kid named Bruce Springsteen rides his bicycle home to get in the car with his mother Adele, played by Gabby Hoffman, to come get their father Douglas, played by Stephen Graham, from a bar, where he gets drunk. When they get back home, Douglas abuses Bruce until we get to him as an adult, played by Jeremy Allen White from the Iron Claw, which I just reviewed recently, performing in a concert in 1981. And after the concert, he sweats his head off. And this whole going back and forth between 1957 to 1981 to 82 did feel a slight bit odd to me. But don't get me wrong, the performance of Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen is the best thing about the movie, as well as the songs, in my opinion. And we get John Landau, played by Jeremy Strong, in to tell Bruce the concert is a hell of a way to end the tour, with the radio reports wanting to chat with Bruce, and his character was likable, as well as Bruce getting back home in New Jersey with Matt Delia, played by Harrison Sloan Gilbertson, whom I reviewed in Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, dropping him off, and Bruce buying a new car. And the cinematography is shot good, as the script came off as a surprise because this is based on a book by Warren Zanes about how Bruce suffers from depression, as that's daring for me. In New York, John visits Al Teller, played by David Krumholtz, whom I've also reviewed in Oppenheimer. And Bruce comes up with the sound of a song where he performs it somewhere in New Jersey. And Bruce sees an old friend named Joey Romano, as he introduces Bruce to his sister Faye, played by Odessa Young, who's an actress I don't really know, who wants to date Bruce as a rock star and is a few years behind them in school. While Bruce drives home and thinks about how Douglas teaches him how to fight, but Bruce doesn't like to fight, and Douglas smacks him in the face anyways, and it kind of throws me off as Bruce and John have dinner at a diner together, as Bruce says he needs to quiet himself down after the tour, and the editing is well edited, in my opinion. Bruce watches the TV and thinks about the fire on the show. He watches and looks up the obituary in the library and thinks of writing a song that he's writing called Starkwater, that'll be eventually called Nebraska, and he writes the lyrics to one song after another. And I like the way director Scott Cooper tells the story of Bruce Springsteen, as we flash back to 1957, when Bruce hits Douglas with a baseball bat. And he says never let anyone hurt his mother, while Douglas was acting drunk, which is an interesting choice for director Scott Cooper. As we move on to Bruce showing up to Faye's parents' house and meets her daughter Haley, and to taking Faye on New Year's Eve, and Bruce takes Faye to a carnival on their first date, and their chemistry was fine, as the actors do a good job at acting against each other. Bruce has Mike Batlin, played by Paul Walter Hauser, whom I reviewed in so much Black Klansman, to Cruella DeVille, and recently in Fantastic Four First Steps, and a bunch of other things, as he brings in a thing to record his songs, and he sings the songs he wants to record, and we go back to 1957, where Douglas takes Bruce to the cinema to a movie called Night of the Hunter, which I'm not familiar with, but it came from MGM, which is something I saw in the credits, as Jeremy Allen White's voice as Bruce Springsteen is very good as he performs Nebraska, and he thinks of other songs to write as he sometimes looks at his old parents' house while they live in California, and he flashbacks to in a piece of land. And the problem is the flashbacks were a bit too much. And did we need them as flashbacks? No, but just show it in the beginning of the movie, while instead of going back and forth like crazy. While Bruce gives Haley the wooden horsey as he hangs out with her and Faye, and I do enjoy these scenes, but this whole going back and forth is making me a little crazy. Bruce, Faye, and Haley hang out at Faye's work, which is a diner, and her manager makes them a home. As this is so far director Scott Cooper's second best movie as his best work, and my opinion, Crazy Heart is the better one as I'm entertained despite it's a little depressing. As we move on to Bruce and John chatting about what's next for Bruce, as he's handed a script called Born in the USA, which is a great song after this, when I reviewed Ben Affleck's Air a couple of years back. And Bruce tests his songs and Mike, and this is working for me as biopic. Bruce gives Mike his songs to deliver to John in a tape without a case whatsoever and gives him a note to hear the music, as there are some improvements to be made for the songs, including Born in the USA. And Bruce believes they have potential, just like this movie has potential to be good until internet rumors saying it was bad until I saw the movie. And so far I'm not having a bad time like some critics are, but are biopics about musicians getting tired after a while? Probably. As Faye visits Bruce after the show and wants him to let her in and gives her a ride home, and he says he's got to go away for a while but doesn't quite break up yet, but Bruce drives too fast to furious after dropping off Faye and listens to a record called Suicide. And Bruce gets his songs back from John, and they say they'll work with it. And this is turning a little depressing in my mind. Bruce gets a call and a message saying Douglas is running around Los Angeles and asks Bruce to come over to bring him back to Adele, as Bruce finds him in a bar and offers him to get some breakfast, and he asks for an Egg McMuffin, which was funny in a haha way because that's a McDonald's thing. And they go to the recording studio to record Born in the USA, which is probably my favorite scene in the movie, as it was a successful recording session, and John asks if someone can hear the song while they're in town, and we get Bruce flashbacking to when Douglas gets home, as we move forward to see how he's doing, and I'm actually having a good enough time with the movie at this point. Bruce hears the song and believes something is wrong with Nebraska, as they can't get the right sound for it, and 2 weeks later Bruce feels nauseous hearing the song, as he knows that it is not working, and Born in the USA is his masterpiece, while Faye and Haley leave the carnival, and Faye calls Bruce as she's upset with him, while Bruce is recording Nebraska sounds, and judges it non-stop, which makes him look like a dick, but it makes sense, as John is dealing with the heavy conflict with his boss Jimmy, as he knows Bruce is suffering from depression, which feels daring to the plot of the movie, while Bruce thinks nonstop and abuses everyone working with him in the set of Chuck Plotkin, played by Mark Marone, who is Mr. Snake from the Bad Guys movies, forces the songs to sound better than what it is, while Bruce performs at the club again. And after the Born in the USA performance, I just don't care for this half of the movie. Bruce is happy with his song he performed, and he performs Nebraska on his own. And John's boss Chuck comes off rather harsh to that song, while Bruce thinks about his past playing in the background. And John tells Chuck he doesn't want to promote the album, which is unlike the artist to not promote an album, which makes sense to his part, as this movie makes okay sense at best. Bruce comes to Faye at her diner and breaks up with her and tells her he's moving to Los Angeles, California to live there, as Faye says Bruce is scared and is running away from his problems, and she says face it, but it terrifies him. And this scene was depressing for damn sure, as John visits him at home the next day and gives him a song to uplift him, as they pull up a song to bring up his memories as he leaves the house to get to Los Angeles in a road trip as they stop in a diner in Texas at a carnival, and he's reminded of his past with like a boy with his father. And it depresses him as next day comes and his driver Matt is worried about Bruce and tells John on the phone, which is a sad scene. And I felt so bad for Bruce at this point in time. Bruce gets to his new house in LA, and nighttime comes with Bruce saying he tried to outrun it as he can't do it anymore. But John says Bruce needs professional help as he's not well, and Bruce goes to therapy for 10 months as that amount of time comes by, and he just finished a concert tour and hugs Adele for a successful concert. As John is there, and Douglas waits for him in the room when he comes in, and excuse me. Douglas tells Bruce to sit on his lap and confesses he wasn't always a good man, but Bruce forgives him after all these years, and the climax was depressing, but it's a good climax, which makes this a good movie. But how good was this movie? Let's talk about it in a rating. I'll give this movie a 6.3 out of 10. Going back and forth between 1957 and 1982 did feel a slight bit odd to me, but don't get me wrong, Jeremy Allen White as Bruce Springsteen is the best thing about the movie, as well as the songs, in my opinion, as this is one of director Scott Cooper's better films. And the best still goes to Crazy Heart, but this movie is about how Bruce Springsteen suffered from depression while making the album Nebraska, which was an unexpected but yet interesting choice, but at the same time a little daring, which shouldn't be done too often, but I liked it for this movie. The cinematography is shot good, while the script was a surprise by the end of it, as the editing was well edited in this. And I like the way director Scott Cooper tells the story, as he tells it in an interesting way. And the chemistry between Bruce and Faye was fine, and the actors do a good job at acting against each other. But the problem is the flashbacks are a bit too much. So why not show them in the beginning of the movie is beyond me. And this whole back and forth thing is making me crazy. It's entertaining while it is a bit depressing. And is this the best movie of the year? No. But it makes me a fan of the song Born in the USA, which is one of his songs. And this is a recommendation for the movie. And this biopic is working for me. And this isn't as bad as critics make this to be, as I didn't have a bad time with the movie like some critics did. And are biopics about musicians getting tired after a while? Probably. But I still liked the movie for what it was. And after Born in the USA, the second half kind of falls apart. But to be fair, it's a good film. Not a great film, but a good film. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me for returning to Scott Cooper's filmography. And until he ever makes another film, Born in the USA.